Hi, everyone. All right. Thank you for tuning into this webinar. I'm actually really excited about this. I feel like it's coming at the perfect time with where we're at with this year, but also going into the new year. I feel like what I want to talk about and what I will talk about is timeless. So I feel like even if you are watching this after the new year, I feel like, this video will find you at the right time. So my intention going into this and why I really wanted to offer this was one, I think this past year has brought a lot of fear and anxieties and a lot of things to surface. And I think because of that, our lives have really drastically changed. And I think it really is in a really beautiful, positive way. I know it's hard to see that sometimes, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit in here. But with this, I wanted to give some tools that have worked for me and that have changed my life completely. And this is just like, scratching the surface. So at some point, I would love to dive deeper into this. I am creating more of a platform to where we can and will dive deeper into this. So that will be coming soon. But today I want to talk about the fears and identifying them and sort of different ways that I release them and work through them and move them. Then we'll kind of go into subconscious and the ego, which is kind of tied in with that. Then that follows into our belief system and our limiting beliefs. And then I'll go into how to reprogram or refocus our energy and what we're seeing. And then we'll go into grounding and sort of recentering to really kind of start off 2021 in a really positive way. But also, like I said, this webinar is timeless. So whenever it finds you, that would be, we are divinely led. So whenever it finds you, that's the right time. I will follow up as part of the grounding. I will be linking up with this a grounding meditation. So there will be 2 links for this. This is the first part. So do this part first and then go into the grounding meditation to kind of wrap up and follow this. As far as what we do here today, and the grounding meditation, if you feel pulled and called to doing that more than just this once, I would absolutely do it. I feel like you could even do this every single day until you feel like you've moved through what has really been weighing on you. Even if there's something in the future that kind of comes up that you feel, you want to kind of move through and work through, because let's face it, like we're always evolving and growing, and fears and beliefs, like this is just a part of the human experience. So use these techniques, what works for you, what doesn't, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. All of this has worked really well for me. It's still things that I do all the time. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So you will need a notebook and a pen for this. And just somewhere quiet, if you have some space just to be quiet. You can pause this video if you need to while you go and grab that, and then just restart whenever you are ready. So let's begin with our fears. I wanted to talk a little bit about our fears, our ego, our subconscious, and our inner child. So one of the most powerful tools, some of the most powerful work that I've ever done was really identifying and leaning into and nurturing my inner child. So I want to explain like what that is. Our inner child is a part of us. Now, this does, I feel like, stem from when we are children, like literally physical children. But I also do feel like this is any part of our previous past. So I'll sort of explain what it is and how mine show up, because there are a few different versions of myself that I'm sort of working through and understanding. So I'll kind of talk about that. So inner child is parts of ourselves that where our emotions and our needs have not been met. So if we were little, and this can be it could be anything. Like, I don't even want to always label it as if we experienced any like physical abuse or emotional abuse. Obviously, my personal experience, that's where mine stems from. A lot of mine does, but this can also be from even if there was a time on the playground where you were bullied or whatever it is. Nothing is greater than or less than. This is all of our human experiences. So this could be being bullied on the playground. It could be something not going your way and you not understanding why, or having like the understanding the emotions as to why this happened or how to move through it. And what happens is we take that on as who we are. Like we take on that experience. And this is where that subconscious really comes in, because our subconscious is on 24/7. So this is, even when we're sleeping, our subconscious is replaying all of these old thoughts, all of these old experiences. So if you've ever noticed yourself, like, say you try to start a business in the past, and right away you can feel that like tingling feeling where you're like, oh, well, I don't think I can ever start one again because it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. So say you started the business and it didn't work out the way you wanted to, say you had to close it, whatever it was. That is our subconscious. That's our ego. That's pulling from these past experiences, trying to keep us safe. Because what it's doing is it's pulling from, think of it this way. If you're watching this, you're still alive, you're well, you're breathing, you're still physically here. Our ego technically likes to drive the bus. It likes to take control and continue to keep you safe and out of harm's way. And because you're still here, and because you're still healthy and vibrant and all these things, all of your previous coping techniques and experiences have gotten you here. So what happens is, when it's on autopilot, if we're not conscious of what we're telling ourselves, and obviously, like this, I do this too, like this is part of the human experience. I remember having a business and I had to close it down. And I remember thinking, when I wanted to begin and open again, I was like, well, what if this happens again? Or what if, financially this happens? Or what if that happens? So if you notice, with the ego and our subconscious and our fears, it's just in the future, or it's in the past. It can't live in this present moment. So what we're doing is we're focusing in on the what ifs, and we're focusing in on the previous, let's say, mishaps or mistakes, or, previous experiences. So when we refocus our energy back to what it is that we do want to create, and this goes from our subconscious thought that's on repeat, where sometimes I don't even realize and know that this is like, I catch myself and I'm like, I see you, I hear you. And that's the goal of this, is to bring the awareness around it, because when we bring our awareness around our beliefs and our behaviors and our emotions are huge. That's when we begin to take our power back. And that's when we're in the present moment, because we're focusing in on what we're feeling at this moment, and we're understanding why we're feeling this way. So one of the things that has been coming up a lot in this year is this uncertainty. We didn't really know what was happening, especially with, it was a perfect example for 2020 with the pandemic and all of that. But what happens is we do then focus in on the future, and what if this happens, and what if that happens? And that's normal. Like these are like normal human behaviors. But the thing is what happens is our nervous system gets like revved up, and we go into this fight or flight mode, or fright, where we freeze, or we get angry, or we want to run away and hide. This is like the subconscious and the ego. This is what it does, is it's trying to keep us in survival. So we go into this mode, but what happens is we are almost like short-circuiting our bodies. We're short-circuiting our nervous system. And our nervous system is what controls everything. It controls our brain function, our body function, everything. And what I noticed with mine, because I'll talk to you about a few things that really like changed my life, which goes into the nervous system, which calmed all of this down, all of my stress and anxiety, and all, the depression and the ebb and the flow and all these things. What happens is that our body like short circuits, and we like overexhaust ourselves. We like exhaust ourselves into or from overthinking and focusing in on, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? It's like we focus in on what we need to control, even if we can't physically control it, because that's like our coping mechanism. That's how we stay alive. So one thing I do want to bring up is what happens with, and this is why I feel like it connects with our inner child, when we have this belief system and we have all of these emotions and these repeating behaviors to kind of keep us alive. When we are focusing on the future, we feel unstable. What I've noticed within myself is that the more that I turn back into myself, and the more that I understand what's going on in my internal world and what I can control, that helps me feel more in control. That helps me feel more certain about the outcome. It's almost like when I turn inward and I look at the emotions that I'm feeling, the coping mechanisms that I'm using, if I look at the thoughts that I'm having, and I really sit down and I sort of sort through everything, and the one game changer with myself is when I constantly did this every single day, every morning. It's constantly showing up for yourself. It's showing up, it's nurturing yourself. Again, this ties in with the inner child, because when you have this part of you that feels isolated and this part of you that feels like it's not stable, or it's not being heard or expressed, or it feels like it can't talk or whatever it is, that's where that instability comes from. And I feel like when we nurture that part of ourselves, when we look at our mind, body, spirit as a whole, and we nurture every different aspect of us, even these past parts of ourselves, that's how we begin to wholly, like WHOLLY. That's how we begin to wholly understand what we need, how to express ourselves, how to continue to live the way that we want to live, what we can release, what's working for us, what isn't working for us. And when I began to really dive into this, and I realized that, okay, if I show up for myself every single day, and if I turn inward and I look at what I need for that day, and I understand, like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is why I'm feeling it, that's okay, I'm honoring it, I'm accepting it, and I'm detaching myself from the outcome. And the more that I showed up for myself, and the more that I loved myself, and the more that I did all these things that nourished me and that helped me feel stable, that is when everything began to become clearer. That's when things began to settle down. Now, along with this work is the nervous system. When I talk about the nervous system and their fight or flight, a few things that I swear by. This like changed my life, and this helped me be able to nurture myself. This helped me be able to be aware of my thoughts, because sometimes we get in our thoughts so much that it's like all consuming to where you can't even see above it. And this is when, and it still happens. And when that happens, I'm like, okay, I need to pause, I need to breathe, and I need to rest and just look at what is actually happening within. Okay. A few things that I do, a few techniques that I use and do to help me get above that when I am like in it and cannot see above it. One thing that I do every day is I visit a chiropractor. It has changed my life completely. I cannot recommend it enough. What it's doing is it's helping you align. It's helping you get into alignment, mind, body, spirit, especially physical body, especially brain function, especially body function, physical function. And what it does is it slowly takes you out of the fight, flight, or fright. And because of that, then the brain fog clears, the emotions calm, life seems to be more at ease. And because of that, then my decisions became clearer. Me showing up for myself became easier. It's almost like it was that extra little push through that I needed to really help me turn inward and be able to do it in a loving way. With chiropractic care, I added in breath work. I know I talk about breath work a lot, but again, what you're doing is you're calming down the central nervous system. You're calming down the vagus nerve, the connection between your brain and your body. And with the breath work, I do yoga, meditation, even just me getting near water, me even just taking 10 deep breaths when I'm feeling it, the overwhelm or the anxiety, whatever it may be. And also journaling for me. And I always recommend it to so many people, but journaling is so powerful because you're identifying what it is. And it might even shock you too. Sometimes I journal and I'm like, I didn't even know that was hanging out in there. I didn't even know I had those emotions in me. And what it is I feel like it's almost like a roadmap. It's a roadmap to, your well-being, your wellness. It's a roadmap to what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And also it's releasing some of that energy. It's letting that move through. It's expressing yourself. It's letting all of that sort of kind of move through instead of be stuck somewhere. I noticed a lot of my stress gets stuck in my chest. I get a lot of anxiety. Even in my stomach, I'll get, the stomach aches or whatever it is. And I'm like, all right, what am I working through? What do I need to release? So those are a few things that I would recommend. If you guys want more information on different breath work techniques, well, I'll just recommend a couple that I love. I love square breathing. Square breathing is a great way of refocusing your energy, like back into the here and now. It really brings you back into the present moment. That helps during like panic attacks. Like if you feel one starting to come on, if you feel like your mind is just like a wheelhouse, I feel like square breath work really helps me. There's like circle breathing. That one is really powerful. I like to do that before meditation because that's a lot of clearing. And also Wim Hof has some on YouTube that he does. It's a lot of the deep belly breathing and a lot of the exhaling and holding your breath. And what Wim Hof technically is helping you do is helping you almost retrain your nervous system, your central nervous system. So I would highly recommend that if this is something that you want to continue to do. I feel the Wim Hof is so powerful, as well as like the circle breathing, because it's really moving energy. So a lot of change will happen within you. Like you'll notice the emotions really kind of coming out and showing themselves. But the good thing with that is then it's kind of moving up and out. It's kind of working through what it is that's kind of sitting there. So I just want to add that into it. Okay, so let's go into our fears, because I want to talk about fears with the ego and moving into limiting beliefs. Because from my experience, again, this is just all my own personal experience that I'm sharing with you guys. Again, this is what works for me. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But what I noticed within myself, with my subconscious and my ego, is from my past experiences and how I perceived them and what I took on. That's what created my limiting beliefs. So because I'll give you an example of some of my fears. I'll give you an example of one of my fears and the belief that kind of comes along with it. A really big fear of mine, which is it's not funny, but it's a big fear of mine, is being heard, is like expressing my voice, which is funny because I love teaching and I love talking. I think one of my biggest dreams is to like sell out an auditorium and like just talk and just like give everyone love and like help them like feel loved and supported. But one of my biggest fears is being heard. And the belief system that comes around that is that that I'm not smart enough to be heard, or that I will be abused again if I am heard. And this stems back from, again, that inner child, that younger self, that part of me that wasn't able to express herself, that wasn't able to be heard. And what I noticed is that I was pulling from my 7-year-old self when I was in my 30-year-old self. So the coping mechanisms and the techniques that I was using and my mindset was from my 7-year-old self. So I kept like replaying these experiences where like I would try this and this wouldn't work. I tried that and it didn't work. And I would always fall back into the same pattern, because what I was doing is subconsciously, I was letting my 7-year-old self, who was terrified of being heard, who didn't feel safe or stable or welcomed anywhere or worthy enough or loved enough, I was letting her drive the bus. I was letting her bring more fear into all of my current circumstances. So what I want to do today is I want to work on identifying some fears that we're having and how that is showing up for you, like what belief is around that. And I want us to connect it to an emotion. So when I talk about fear of being heard, in my belief system that I'm not smart enough to be heard, I'm not smart enough to use my voice, the emotion that goes in with that is unworthiness or shame. Trying to think of what else I tie to that. I feel like there's a little bundle of emotion into that. Let's start with that. So that was an example. So the fear that I have, the belief created from that, and then the emotion that I tie to that. So what we're going to do right now is you can keep playing this, but take out the notebook and pen. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down 1 to 5 of your fears. So this could be fear of being seen. This could be fear of not having enough money. One thing I do want to bring in is there are like a couple of different, so let's say 4 different like categories within our life. So you can focus in on like one in each. You can focus in on just one that you feel like is like the most dominant right now. But I always focus in on relationships, finance, life purpose or career, however you want to label that. Let's do that. Let's do relationships. Let's do finances and money. And then let's do life's purpose and career. And then let's do health as the last one. So if you look at those 4 categories, you can write those down. So it was relationships, finances, life purpose or career and then health. So you can look at each of the 4 categories. You can look at one fear that you have in each of those. You can look at if it's just relationships that you're really focusing in on, you can look at that and you can look down fears within relationships. Again, if that is fear of speaking out or fear of never finding someone or fear of losing someone or whatever it may be. So you can go ahead and pause the video if you need to. Take all the time that you need to just write down 1 to 5, and then press play again whenever you're ready, and we'll keep moving through this, okay? Okay, so a couple of journaling prompts. Now, I feel like this might even be something to look at even like throughout the weeks, like even if you continue to do this throughout December or the next 2 weeks, excuse me, into the new year. So you just wrote down 1 to 5 fears that you have. I want you to journal about what they are and how it limits you. So now we're going to focus in on what that limiting belief is, what the belief system is around that. So if that is, let's say, your fear is of losing someone or a relationship not working out. And the belief system is, maybe it's better to be on my own, or maybe it's just easier to live on my own, or whatever it may be. So go ahead and just look at what are some of the beliefs that you have around that. Even if it's finances, like, fear of not having enough money, or fear of not knowing what to do with the money, or whatever it is, and then look at what belief system you feel unworthy of accepting money, or who would ever pay you money, or I'm never going to make enough, whatever it may be. Go ahead and look at that. And then you can pause the video again and then press play whenever you're ready to keep going. Okay, so you wrote down the fears. The questions were, what are they? How does it limit you? So what is the fear, and then the limiting belief? And now I want to move into, let's start with what emotion can we connect with that? So if you look at each one of the fears that you have, let's say you picked out 3. Let's look at the first one and look at what emotion would you connect with it. So if one was fear of not having enough money, and the limiting belief is that no one would ever pay me for my services. No one would ever pay me for what I do. Then look at the emotional side of it. Is it because you feel unworthy? Is it because you feel sad or scared, or whatever it is? Try to identify and hook that with an emotion with this. And then you can go ahead and pause this again, and then we'll begin again once you have that completed. Okay, So we have all of the 1 to 5 fears that we have written down. The limiting beliefs, we connected it with an emotion. Now what I want to do is, if you want to even write right under each one, if you want to write down what it is that you do want to feel. So let's just focus in on the emotional part of it. Say the fear that you feel or the emotion that you feel is unworthiness. How do you then want to feel? So you can draw a little arrow and then write down what it is that you do want to feel. What do you want to replace this emotion with? What do you want to replace the unworthiness with? And go ahead and circle that. So we'll have at least like three to 5 emotions that we do want to feel. So you can pause this again and then you can write that down. Okay. So something I want to talk about refocusing our energy. So what happens is we have these fears in this belief system, and we focus in on it so much, and we stay in this hamster wheel of fear and all, worry and anxieties and all these things. We are revving up our nervous system. We're revving up, our bodies to work on like basically empty. We're depleting it of the energy that it needs. And we're focusing in on and trying to control something that is in the future, something that was in the past, something that we are using our energy supply to try to muscle our way. Sorry, guys. We're trying to muscle our way through to figure out a solution. As I said before, when I refocus my energy back to what I can control, this is where my power and my energy began to rev up. Now, as I said before, I started with the chiropractor, with the yoga and the meditation and the breath work and the journaling. These are tools that I use on a daily basis to help me stay in alignment, to help me keep an eye on my mind, body, spirit. What is it that I need that day that is going to keep me in balance? Now, when I learned about what the RAS was. Let's start there. I started learning about it's the reticular activating system. So it's how we see things. It's the part of our brain that processes through what we're seeing. So what happens is when we're stuck in this fight or flight and we're stuck in fear and we're on this autopilot, our brain is stuck on seeing just what's on autopilot. We're stuck on what we can only see, what is right in front of us. And what happens is that's when we burn ourselves out. That's when we have like brain fog or fatigue or headaches or stomach aches or anxiety or whatever it may be, however your body is expressing it. When I began to look at the RAS and I began to look at what I was focusing in on, I realized that I was always focusing in on the lack of something. Oh, my bank account never has enough money. Oh, the pounds on the scale is too much. Or, oh, there's not enough time in the day. Or, oh, of course that would happen. Like, the sun isn't out or whatever it may be. I was always focusing in on what wasn't there, that I missed out on what was there. So when we begin to retrain the RAS, when we begin to retrain what it is that we do want to see and feel and experience, that is when we begin to change our inner world. That is when we begin to then change our outer world. Because as we all know, how we feel in here is how we are experiencing our life. That is how we are seeing what is out there in our life. So if we begin to nurture these part of ourselves that doesn't feel welcomed or stable or certain, or these parts of us that are fearful, if we go into that and if we almost dissect it a little bit, if we dissect and look at it and say, okay, I understand that, I accept that, but we don't need to live like that anymore. We don't need to think that way anymore, because if we look at that, that really didn't create any fulfillment for us. Like that really brought us down even lower. So what can we then focus in on? We can focus in on what it's showing us within us. We can focus in on the positive things in our life. Maybe we had enough money to go get our favorite cup of coffee today, Maybe the sun did come out today. Maybe it was cloudy, but the sky was gorgeous. Maybe you got to catch the sunset for that day. Maybe your best friend called you. Again, this is where the work comes in. And sometimes, you guys, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I am literally picking myself up off the floor, and sometimes I just need to stay there for a few more minutes. You have to like almost, you don't have to do anything, but it's almost like showing yourself grace. It's having grace for yourself. Like, one thing I always say to people is like, and I have to say this to myself, so it's not just me saying it to people, it's to me too, but these are behaviors that I've been doing for 30, 32 years. Like, it might take me a little bit longer to break that cycle. It might take me longer than an hour or a day or a week or month to work through like this fearful thought that I'm having, and that's okay. But the fact that you even have awareness around what it is, that's already you taking your power back. That's just the first step to getting through this. So don't underestimate the power of your awareness with how you are experiencing your life and how you want to experience your life. So when you begin to, again, refocus the energy back with the RAS, it's refocusing your energy in on what you do want to experience. That's when the change begins to happen, because then you start seeing the good stuff. Then you start seeing beyond what's right in here that, we're holding on to and grasping onto because we're so used to it. And one thing I noticed with this is when I really was working through like these fears and these ego thoughts, like it felt really foreign to step outside of that. It felt really uneasy and foreign to be like, well, I'm going to choose differently. I'm going to choose self-love. Let's see what happens when I do that. So don't be surprised if things feel different. That's a good thing. If things begin to feel more expansive, if things then begin to feel lighter, I always feel like the more and more that I'm speaking my truth, and the more and more that I am speaking and almost choosing differently and choosing to feel the way that I want to feel, I gain more momentum and more power in here than I ever have in my entire life. So it's like I was scared of talking, so I try to talk more. I try to like be heard more. And it's something that I might always work on, and that's okay. But my awareness is there, and I'm gentle with myself because I know that this pattern I've been doing for 24, 25 years that I'm trying to work through and break. So if that takes me a little bit, that's just what it's going to be. Okay. So let me make sure I covered everything I wanted to. Let's see here. I think that was everything. Okay. So to recap a little bit, we talked about identifying the ego, our fears, how it kind of shows up, pulling from past experiences, the uncertainty when we don't feel stable. That's us focusing in on the future or in the past. It's us repeating these behaviors that we kind of took on when we were younger and that we kind of keep taking on, that are, our coping mechanisms, our way of survival. But if you feel like you want to work through that and choose differently, if you don't want to feel the fear anymore, if you want to calm it down or try to see it differently or understand it, I feel like these things will help give you a different perspective. Now, like I said, we wrote down the fears and we looked at the limiting beliefs and the emotions that come up with it. And now we're refocusing to what we do want to experience. We're refocusing it on the emotions that we do want to feel. And with that, what we're going to do is I am going to, as I said, I'm going to guide you through a guided meditation. It will be separate from this. I highly recommend it. I love meditating. I'm a little biased, but what we'll do with this is we're going to ground ourselves in the new emotions that we want. First, we're going to release the old emotions, and then we're going to ground into the emotions that we do want to feel. So I highly recommend it. One other thing I do want to add, and this is just more of like the spiritual side of it, but when we feel unworthy or not stable or uncertain, that to me always signals our root chakra. Our root chakra, and I know I'm kind of throwing chakras in there now too, but we don't even need to focus on the labeling part of it, but I'm associating our grounding meditation with our root chakra because they're like one and the same. Because what I'll actually be doing is helping you ground your root chakra. Our root chakra is how we view ourselves in the world. It's how we identify the world. It's our foundation of who we are. It's our foundation of how we feel and experience. So when I say grounding our energy, sometimes if you feel like really anxious or uneasy, or just you can't feel that love emotion, I ground my energy. So sometimes that's me going near the water, sometimes that's me going for a hike in the woods, sometimes that's me just putting my feet in the grass and just wiggling my toes, and sometimes that's a grounding meditation, especially when it gets a little bit colder out. Sometimes I just go into the meditation. um, a couple of, I feel like I'll just mention this too, a couple crystals that I love to associate with that is smoky topaz and smoky quartz. Smoky quartz in particular, I feel like I keep it on my nightstand, because it's very powerful. It's very grounding, and it's very serene and calming. And that's what I really want to offer with this webinar and this meditation. So as I said before, take this, the little journaling prompts, the awareness around, what we looked at today. You can do this quarterly, you can do this weekly, you can do it monthly, you can do it once, whatever you feel pulled towards. I want to say too, if you feel disconnected in any way from you, I feel like this would be a good way of really reconnecting with where your mind is going, where your mind is repeating. And whenever I notice I'm feeling disconnected, it's because my mind is really going, it's really wandering, it's really projecting. So bringing it back into mind, body, spirit, and bringing it back to, okay, what is my mind saying? What is my body telling me? What does my soul need? What do I need? That's where we create the balance, the realignment within ourselves. So I hope that this helped you guys. I appreciate all of you. I'm sending lots of love and light. I know it's been a heck of a year, but I know we are really beautiful transformations are taking place. So I just want to say I'm proud of all of you. Keep hanging in there. Keep doing the work. You're doing great. When you're ready, I would tune into the grounding meditation. If you have any questions at all or comments, obviously you know where to find me on Instagram at Angelica Grace with the letter C at the end of it, Angelica Grace C, or email, Facebook, whatever it is. So just shout out. All right, guys, thank you. Enjoy. I will talk to you soon.